Hi, my name is Marcy Johnson, and I'm an estate planning and elder law attorney with the Johnson firm. And I want to personally thank you for spending your afternoon with me today to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, the VA pension. Now, my goal as we gather here together is just to explain what the VA pension is, the rules for eligibility, and then offer some guidelines if you don't automatically qualify. So let's begin. Why would we want to talk about the VA pension in the first place? Well, if you're not familiar with the pension program, it offers tax-free money to veterans to help pay for their long-term care. Now, why would that be important? Well, if you don't know, long-term care can be expensive. Now, this was a survey done by Genworth back in 2020 that gave the average cost of long-term care. I specifically looked up Dallas because that's where we're located. And this is what they showed. And you can see here they give the annual price for nursing home, assisted living, home health, and adult daycare. Now, I'll tell you, in looking at this list, I thought that these prices, they were average. They are not the prices that most of my clients are paying for long-term care. I would say in the North Dallas area, for a semi-private room in the nursing home, you're looking at more like $6,000 a month, which would be $72,000 annually. Same with assisted living. Instead of 4532, which is what they show here, I'm seeing closer to 4,500 a month. So you can see when you add that up month after month or year after year, you can substantially spend a lot of assets on your long-term care. And so I encourage you to think about your nest egg that you spent your lifetime building. And if you had to take $72,000 out year after year, just how long would your assets last? And they may not last near as long as you might think they would. And also just remember that this also is just for one person. If you are married, and the healthy spouse is still living in the home, they have their own household expenses to keep up their lifestyle. So, if we're looking at, say, $72,000 a year for the one in the nursing home, add another $30,000, $40,000 or more to that for the healthy spouse still living in the home. And again, it can just wipe out your life savings quickly. So how are we going to pay for this? So looking at these numbers, that you potentially may have to pay anywhere between $60,000 to $70,000 annually once you need a higher level of care. How are we going to pay for it? Well, there's three main ways that you can pay for long-term care. Most people think that they're going to private pay, that they're going to pay out of their own assets and savings that they've spent a lifetime to build. Maybe you're fortunate and are lucky enough to have children or other family members who can pay. Unfortunately, there are not many of us with that luxury. So if you can't private pay or you don't want to private pay, what are your other options? Well, one is to look at buying long-term care insurance. And if you haven't looked at long-term care insurance, I encourage you to do so. But a lot of people think it's expensive, and it is expensive. I mean, a premium could easily run $6,000 to $7,000 a year. But like I said, it is expensive, but when you look at how much a nursing home costs per month, maybe this $6,000 premium per year isn't so bad when considering you could be paying $6,000 a month. But maybe you don't have a choice. Maybe long-term care insurance isn't available for you. You just don't have the money to pay the premiums, or maybe you have a health condition in which you would not be, you couldn't be rated. You just wouldn't physically be eligible to get insurance. So what choices do we have left? Well, then we need to look at governmental programs. And there's three main programs that we look at. We look at Medicare, we look to Medicaid, and we look to VA pension. Now, I have Medicare on here. It's more of a misnomer because Medicare, a lot of people think that it will cover their long-term care costs. And I'm here, unfortunately, to burst your bubble and say, no, it won't. Medicare will pay up to 20 days of skilled nursing if for acute care. So if you had surgery and then needed to go to rehab and they sent you to a nursing care facility, they will pay 20 days of your rehab, full cost. Then between day 21 and day 100, they will prorate the copay amount. But after day 100, you're completely on your own. So while Medicare may cover a small portion of your stay, it is not meant to pay for long-term residential living costs. So mark Medicare off your list as a viable option. So the next two governmental programs that are available are Medicaid and VA pension. Now, I do a complete workshop just on Medicaid and how its rules affect you. That is not the focus of today's workshop, though. So I encourage you, if you want to find out more about Medicaid, call our office. But today, we're just going to focus on the VA pension. Now, what is the VA pension? Now, the VA pension is a program specifically designed for seniors age 65 or older. And the purpose of the program was to keep veterans and their spouses from going impoverished, paying for their long-term care costs. So if you meet these requirements for the VA pension, then the VA will give you tax-free money to help pay for your long-term care costs. Now, why is this important? Because if you qualify for the highest level of pension, which is aid and attendance, this year, a veteran and their spouse could receive $25,000 tax-free, and they would receive that every year for the rest of their life. So you can see that's a really big deal, and it's such a life changer for so many of my families. It's just so important. And so I encourage you, if you don't know about the VA pension, to learn about it. And that's what we're doing here today. So let's get into the rules. So again, the pension requirements to earn this tax-free money every year for the rest of your life. Who's this pension for? It's for veterans with wartime service. Now, remember, this is not for someone who was career military. It was just someone who served during wartime. This could also be the surviving spouse of a wartime veteran. They're age 65 or older, and they need some assistance with long-term care costs. And why are they offering this pension? Because we are going to show the VA that your income is less than the medical expenses you are paying out to pay for your care, and your assets are too little to pay for your long-term care. And how do you get this benefit? Well, you talk to a VA accredited attorney like myself or someone like me, and file a claim with the VA showing your eligibility. So let's break this down just a little bit more. So when I talk to clients about the VA pension and its requirements, I break them down into certain type of tests. You won't see this language on the VA website, but I just think it makes more sense. So I say there's 3 tests you need to pass. You need to pass a service test. And this is the most critical test, because if you don't pass this, then we can't look at the VA benefit any further. So you must have served 90 days of active duty, and just 1 day was during wartime. And then you had to be discharged from anything other than dishonorable. So it could be honorable, general, or a medical discharge. Now, when we say that you had to serve 90 days on active duty 1 day during wartime, that doesn't mean that you had to see combat. It doesn't mean that you had to be in a war zone. It just means that 1 day while you were serving active duty somewhere in the world, there was a war going on with the United States. Now, if you don't know what the dates of war were, the official dates were, I've got them listed here. So World War II is considered December 7th, 1941 through December 31st, 1946. For the Korean War, it's June 27th, 1950 through January 31st, 1955. The Vietnam War officially is August 5th, 1964 through May 7th, 1975. However, if you were a veteran who was serving in Vietnam before August 6, 1964, then your dates are different. They're February 28, 1961 through May 7th, 1975. And the Persian Gulf War started in August 2nd of 1990 and technically is not over yet. Now, the requirements I'm giving for the VA pension specifically today refer only to those veterans who served during World War II, Korean, or the Vietnam War. The Persian Gulf War requirements are a little bit different in that they actually had to serve 24 continuous months of service, whereas the other three wars, which we're talking about mainly today for our veterans who are 65 and older, is just 90 days active duty, 1 day during wartime. But again, if you don't know the dates that you served, then you can look at your discharge papers. If you don't know what that's called, it's usually called a DD-214. And that's your separation papers that show the date that you were enlisted and the date that you were separated or released from active duty. If you don't have your DD-214, you can request one for free through the Federal Archives.gov, and you can enter some information about the veteran, and they will send you a copy of the DD-214. And that's really important because if you do apply for benefits, you're going to need that DD-214, those discharge papers, to prove that you meet the service requirement. So let's pretend that we did meet the service requirement. So we met the service requirement, active duty, 90 days, 1 day during wartime, honorably or dishonorably discharged. Then the next test we need to pass is the asset test. Now, for the asset test, we have to show that we have less than $130,773 in countable assets. Now you'll notice that is an exact number. Now just know that that number changes every year. It goes up with inflation. So this is the number for this year, but it'll go up in a couple of months. But you'll also notice that it says countable assets. Now countable is a key word. You will see that word in the VA benefits world, and you'll also see it in Medicaid. And what they're saying there is the VA and Medicaid look at, when they say countable, anything that can readily be turned into cash to pay for your long-term care is countable. So of those assets, bank accounts, brokerage accounts, life insurance proceeds, retirement accounts, CDs, real estate other than your homestead, those are countable. So calculate the value of all those assets. And if it's less than $130,773, then you meet the asset test. So if there are things that are countable, that means there are things that are not countable. And what's not countable is your house. So for VA, it does not matter the value of your home. Whatever the value of your home is, it's not countable. Neither is a car. It doesn't matter the type of car. It could either be a Ford or it could be a Maserati. They're not going to count the value of the car. And they're not going to count your personal effects, just your stuff in your house. So technically, from this, let's break this down. So if you had a $500,000 home and less than $130,000 in the bank, you would meet this asset test. Okay, so just to point that out. So if you meet the asset test and the service test, we've got one more test to pass, and that's the income test. And I will tell you that this is the crux, that if you know people who have applied for VA benefits and have been denied, it's usually because of this requirement right here. And it's because their income from all sources has to be less than what they're paying out in unreimbursed medical expenses. Now, what's an example of an unreimbursed medical expense? Well, it's anything that's not covered by insurance. So these include health insurance premiums. That includes long-term care insurance, wages paid to a caregiver if you have a caregiver coming into the house, assisted living costs, or skilled nursing costs. So we have to show that we are upside down. So let's just take an example. If you've got $2,000 that you're receiving in Social Security, and that's your only income that's coming in, then if you were in an assisted living facility, let's say in Dallas, where we said assisted living facilities about $5,000 a month. So if you're only bringing in $2,000 and you're paying out $5,000, then you're upside down. And so you meet the income test. Um, Health insurance premiums. So just to explain what that is. So if you're paying Blue Cross Blue Shield um, or United, $300, $400 a month for health insurance premiums, that's counted. You already have one that most of you don't even realize you're paying, and that's your Medicare Part B, which this year is $148.50. That comes out of your Social Security check before it even hits your bank account. So there are a lot of unreimbursed medical expenses that you may not even realize that you're paying. So we take all those and add them up. And if your income is less than those unreimbursed medical expenses, then you meet the test. So if you meet this income test, and if you meet the asset test and the service test, then you would be entitled to the base pension amount, which that's the lowest amount of pension available. And it's about, I'll show you in just a slide, in 2 slides coming up, it's about $18,000 a year. So that's not bad. It sure would be helpful to get that extra money. However, when most people are applying for VA, they're wanting the maximum amount that's available under the program rules. And the maximum amount is called aid and attendance. And the way you get aid and attendance is by one extra test that we pass, and that is a health test. If we can show that not only do we meet the service requirement, we meet the asset requirement, we meet the income requirement, but also that we need assistance with 2 activities of daily living, then we can get the maximum pension amount available under the VA rules. So the health test, activities of daily living are, you may hear that in the long-term care sphere, but they're things that you can do. If you can dress yourself without assistance, if you can bathe yourself without assistance, stand and walk without assistance, eating, that's actually hand to mouth, and toiletry. If we can show that you need help with at least 2 of these, with a doctor's note that's substantiated on a doctor's form, then we can get the extra aid and attendance. Now, a lot of people look at this list and automatically disqualify themselves because they say, well, I don't need help with any of these. But I encourage you to expand your mind on what some of these activities of daily living really encompass. This is not an exhaustive list, but for example, for bathing, if you have shower bars in your bathtub to hold on to because you're a fall risk, or you get dizzy or get really tired standing for that long in the shower, I would consider that as a assistance with bathing. If you need help getting out of a chair, if you use a cane or a walker at any point for stability, that's needing help with standing or walking. Now, this doesn't say that you need complete assistance with these activities of daily living. It just means you need some assistance with these activities of daily living. So remember, all this is substantiated by a doctor's form, but if a doctor can show that you need help with at least 2 of these, now, then you can get the aid and attendance. So just know things that aren't on here that also would be included would be medication management, dementia, if you have some dementia issues. If we can just show that you need some oversight in your ability to take care of yourself, that usually meets the test. So if we can show, let's just go with the base. If we don't have any activities of daily living that we need help with, but we're over 65, the base amount, like I said, is $18,240 a year, tax-free for the rest of your life. But usually if we're trying to get VA, we're trying to get the maximum amount. That's what the aid and attendance is, and that's what's highlighted here. So if you are married and you're a veteran, you can get up to $27,540 tax-free every year. If you're a single veteran, $23,232. Now, again, these are highlighted and these are real specific numbers because they go up with inflation. So in a couple months, these are going to go up. So they're not set in stone. Now, that's the benefit for aid and attendance. Now, if you are a surviving spouse of a veteran, we can still get this money, but it's about half as much. So you'll see for aid and attendance, it's about $14,928 for this year. And for the surviving spouse to qualify for this benefits, the veteran that they were married to had to have met all the service requirements. And they also had to have been married to the veteran at the time of the veteran's death and not remarried. This does not mean that the surviving spouse had to have been married to the veteran when they were serving, but they were the spouse that was married to that veteran when that veteran died. So we can go through and get surviving pension for the surviving spouse. Now, what if you don't qualify? We've gone over a lot of different rules today. Those are just the generic rules, but maybe you've looked at those, the asset requirements and the income requirements. You're like, I don't qualify. Well, what can we do? Well, first of all, let's talk about if you don't need any assistance yet. If you're in good health, if we went and had a doctor evaluate you and there was nothing wrong, we don't have high blood pressure, we don't have neuropathy, we don't have dementia, we have nothing wrong, then first of all, that's a good thing. Be blessed. But even if you don't have something now, what we can do is we know that if you meet the service requirements, then we know that at some point in the future, if your health declines, you would be eligible for this pension. So what we can do is just make sure that when your health declines, that you are positioned to be ready to receive that benefit when it becomes available. So we may want to look at your assets and make sure that we're in line with the program rules and move your assets if need be, but just make sure that as soon as your health meets the health tests for the aid and attendance, that all of the other requirements are met so that you can get this VA pension as soon as possible when you need it. So if no assistance is needed, I would still look at these requirements and position yourself so that you're ready as soon as your health declines. Now, what if you have too much income? Well, remember, the whole purpose of the pensions, we've got to show that we're upside down in income. So maybe we can increase our unreimbursed medical expenses. Maybe we need to change our insurance premiums. Maybe we need to get a higher plan. If we just needed to add $50 or $100 more in order to be upside down in our income, wouldn't that be worth it to change a plan to pay $50 or $100 more so that we could get several $1,000s tax-free in pension? So we look at your income and maybe we can increase unreimbursed medical expenses where none were before. What I do for a lot of clients is if we have the right relationship in the family, if we have a loved one, if say mom and dad is a veteran, if mom and dad do need care, but they're not at a level in which they need a caregiver, an official caregiver to come in, but let's just say their daughter lives close by and they're checking in on mom and dad, they're making sure that they get their groceries and they're taking them to their doctor's appointments and helping them with their finances. Well, we can set up an official caregiver agreement with that daughter and pay that daughter for her oversight, just as if we were paying a third-party caregiver. So sometimes we can create unreimbursed medical expenses where none existed before. And we can do that if we have the right type of family with a family caregiver. Now, what if we have too many assets? So again, I hope you didn't tune me out, but if you have more than $130,733 in assets, not including your house and your car, what do? Well, we've got to look at how much more you have than the required amount. If we've just got $15,000, $20,000 too much, maybe we private pay or spend down. If you've got any credit card debt or if we can pay off the mortgage, maybe we spend down so that we get under the $130,000 range. Or maybe we can purchase exempt assets. if you need to remodel the house, if we need to buy a nicer car, or perhaps you haven't paid for your prepaid burial. Those are things that we can expend on your behalf. You're going to need them anyway, and it benefits you, but it also would spend down legitimately so that we could get you within range. So that's another way that we can spend assets. Now, if you have substantially more than what the program rules allow, if you have 600, 700, 800,000 or more, and it doesn't make sense for us to spend down in order to get you eligible, then what we can do is we can take the excess assets over the amount of the program rules, and we can move them. And if you've got the right family, this makes a lot of sense. We can take those assets and we can move them to an asset protection trust. Usually it's managed by your family or someone that you have full trust and confidence in. And we can move those assets and we can preserve them. Now they have to sit there for at least 3 years, because VA looks back 3 years to see if you've made any gifts. And as long as your gifting has happened outside of 3 years, they don't care what happens outside of 3 years. So if you take these assets and move them, have them managed by someone you have full faith and confidence in, wait 3 years, then after those 3 years have passed, if you meet the income requirements and the asset requirements and the health requirements, then at that point, you can legitimately tell the VA that your assets are within range. So there's lots of different choices that you can do here in order to get qualified. And if you've been denied, a lot of times it's because of that unreimbursed medical, that your income wasn't less than your unreimbursed medical. But I encourage you, if you have been denied, or if you've looked at this, a lot of people look at these rules and automatically disqualify themselves and don't realize that there are things that can be done in order to make one eligible when they need the benefit. So I encourage you, we've gone over all these rules together. And if you want to find out more about this information, I welcome you to download my book. So I have this book. It's called Helping Veterans Pay for Long-Term Care, the VA Pension. And it's free for a download on our website. So feel free to contact our office, and any of our team members at our office can answer any specific questions that you may have. And if you want to pursue this benefit, we can definitely help you. And so I just want to thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.